Top of the morning to you laddies. God. And welcome back to my basement. Another week, another day, another earth-shattering, another earth-shattering realization. Today we're going over everyone's favourite Irish YouTuber, and the only Irish YouTuber I know, so I can't really make a joke mentioning another one, Jacksepticeye. That's just Sean. Just Sean. And today, I'm going to solve his law, because I solved FNAF, I solved MatPat. You think I can't solve the Jacksepticeye law? Let me tell you how unequivocally certain I can beat this law, okay? You want to know? I'll tell you. 2 years ago, because that's how long this has been in the works, talk about procrastination. No, there's it's going to be a problem. 2 years ago, it's like 14, 13 maybe, I watched a MatPat video reacting to Irish Project, Chase Brody, and that sent me on a Jacksepticeye rabbit hole. And so I figured, what would be fun? How about I catch up? I've missed a lot of the Markipliers, Jacksepticeyes of the world. I'll just watch, every series with their alter egos in. He's only got 6. It can't be that much. Now, I should put a bit of an asterisk here. It wasn't just every episode. It was every series that had an alter ego. So, for example, not alter because that's something else in this franchise. An alter ego in, but also prequel and sequel series. So let's use FNAF as an example. If, say, Andy had only appeared in one video across any of his FNAF videos, and he's covered, I think, he's done at least one video on every game, I would have watched all of them. Now, that's fine, because I'm a big fan of FNAF, so of course I would have done that anyway, but, now imagine that for, something that I'm not super interested in. Yeah, you can kind of see how, the South Park one is a good example. He, from South Park, The Fractured But Whole, in that game, the superhero Jackie Boy Man appears from episode 2 to just the end of that series. Obviously, I watched episode 1 because what am I insane? And let's say he stopped episode 10 and continued the series. He didn't. But let's say he did. I would still have watched to the end of the series, just in case the wiki had missed any appearances in that series. But I also went back and watched the series before that on the South Park game before that, despite not being a South Park fan at all. And despite the fact that the wiki did not list any of his egos as appearing, because that's the kind of obsessive person I am. I have to watch through. I have to watch things in order. I have to watch it episode by episode. I can't miss details. It's the same thing that happens with Naruto. Right, I watched the entire Naruto, and I had to watch filler, even though I hated watching filler. Yeah. And so, and I actually didn't realise about the wiki at first, so at first I was just I was stumbling in the darkness trying to find Jack series with his egos in, and it kind of led to a cool moment. I was watching all of his surgery, not Surgeon Simulator, although that series was great, but the little clicker surgery games that kind of teach you how surgeries go, I don't know. And, I kind of resigned myself to the fact that, Sneeplestein wouldn't appear in that series because he didn't. But I watched it through anyway, and it was fun. I was having a good time with it. And then he appeared in the last episode, and I was like, whoa! And I was actually blown away, which I feel much better about, because if I had known that was happening, I just wouldn't have... Honestly, I probably wouldn't have watched them in order, and I probably wouldn't have got a cool reveal. Past that, I went to the wiki. I had to go back and watch some of the ones I'd already watched, because I missed the, split-second Auntie appearances, which is my problem with Auntie. He's appeared in so much. And usually for only a second, so I'd watch it through, and then I'd have to go back anyway and see his appearances. It was excellent. It took me, for every kind of sequel, prequel series that an ego has appeared in even once, it took me, and I was watching these 24/7, by the Like, I'd stop here and there to listen to music or to watch MatPat. One night, I believe, I went on an archaeology expedition on YouTube. So, but pretty much, I would say, non-stop, every day was Jacksepticeye. I was watching, episodes upon episodes of Jacksepticeye. I would go late into the night, because I'm just a person who stays up late. It would be, early into the morning of the school day. I'd be watching it as I go to school. Like, I would, 24/7 watching Jacksepticeye. This wasn't, an episode a day or anything. This was, getting through as much as I could a day. Most days, him being the only thing I watched during this time period, it took me from the beginning of the Christmas holidays to halfway through the Easter holidays. At that rate, it took me a quarter of a year of watching pretty much nothing but Jacksepticeye to be able to cover every single episode of every single series, prequel and sequel series, that even had an appearance of an ego in. Admittedly, that is obviously boosted by the fact that I was, obsessive and had to watch every sequel. If you were only watching the episodes they appeared in, it would have been much less. But then I was also watching it probably more because I would say I probably stay up later than most people. At least at that time I did. So, probably roughly evens out. Point is, it took me a quarter of a year to do this. A quarter of a year of watching nothing but Jacksepticeye. It was pretty, maybe I'll do a video ranking every series, probably not. But just quickly, I guess I'll give some reviews of some of the best ones. Surgeon Simulator was great. Frankly, all of the egos had great, between the Power Hours and the respective series. It was Anti was the only one I really had a problem, in quotations, you could say, a problem with, in the sense that he appeared in a lot of just kind of horror games, 3 scary games, also I had to watch all of those, and there was no dedicated order, so that was tricky. Anti made a lot of split-second appearances. As I said, I would have to go back and find them after watching it, so it was, Anti was kind of the main from my existence, but most of them are kind of mid-tier. But there were some good ones. The Boss, the fan game, never would have watched that if Anti didn't appear in it, and for as much as I was expecting it to be a low, random fan game, frankly a lot of kind of fan games can be, or, one that leans too heavily into certain jokes and stuff, no, I actually found it to be quite enjoyable. Got a powerful story. Maybe could have worked on the gameplay a little, but, powerful story, really good, I liked it, and Anti technically didn't even appear in it, he only appeared in the game, in the end credits, he wasn't even, part of the game, and he especially didn't appear in the episodes, but I don't care, because it was a great series. And I swear they said they were working on a sequel, but, this was years ago, so I don't know if that's still happening. I hope so, because, again, it was a good game. I just hope next time they maybe put in, some combat or something, make it a bit more like an AR, like an RPG. But, again, it was good. It was fun to watch. I enjoyed it. Doki Doki series, again, absolutely great. Loved it. As a massive FNAF fan, I didn't like most of his FNAF series, just by virtue of I feel, again, FNAF was one of the ones I saved for last, because I really love FNAF. I feel like after you've watched someone for a quarter of a year, you might just be able to tell when they do and don't like something, and you could kind of tell it wasn't his thing. Now, I'm not saying he has to like what I like, or anything, it was a bit sad to see that negativity about something I love so much, but, also I fell for one of his edits, putting the Mangle in Funtime Foxy's area, and I don't blame myself for that, because if you look at how Yendo is, and that's a real Easter egg, you cannot blame me for the fact that it doesn't look 100% convincing. Okay, you can't blame me for falling for that. Also, I was 13, shut up. Or 14. Either way, his sister location series, with the exception of that little tidbit where I kind of embarrassed myself online on Reddit, so it's kind of fine anyway. Yeah, with the exception of that little tidbit, his sister location series was great. Security Breach was great, and frankly, I loved VR. The little bit of VR he did, it actually was quite fun. It's not like the first games, you could tell just weren't his thing, and that's fine. It's perfectly fine. Obviously, people don't have to like the same things, that's fine. But, watching him go for one episode, and kind of then not, and kind of be complaining the whole time, Again, perfectly fine not to like something, I just wonder why he played them. He said himself that he doesn't need to play them, he doesn't want it for the money, so it kind of makes me wonder, like, I appreciate the fact that he was willing to give it a go, even if he didn't like the first game. So I think that led to some great series in like Sister Location. But, you know, it does make me wonder, wouldn't you wait until the game had come out and see if the gameplay looks different enough to see if you like it? I don't know. That's just my thing. But, yeah, most of these were great. Laugh. Laugh was great. Laugh was fantastic. I love to laugh. And frankly, it got me really hyped for meme time, which is a shame, because meme time kind of sucked. First off, it wasn't really meme time so much. It felt a bit more like the Jacksepticeye community power hour, which is fine. Like, I am 100% for fans being able to make things and the creators being able to see and react to it. Fan art's great, you know, all kind of the animations. But Anti was only technically listed as appearing because he appeared for like a kind of Smash characters edit someone did. It was really good, but my god, Meme Time is 52 episodes long. He appeared in one of them and it wasn't even intentional on Jack's part. It was just a fan edit. And I could not, like, I promise you, I wanted to not watch it all. I got through, like, 30-something episodes, and I just wanted to give up. Like, I couldn't. Because it was so repetitive, frankly. Like, there are a lot of similar jokes, and Jack's responses, I'm going to be honest, were both underwhelming. Again, love Jack, I think he's done a lot of great stuff. And even there are Meme Time episodes that I think are good in a vacuum, but this was not a series designed to be binged. Like a lot of animes, this was not a series designed to be binged, and when you binge it, you kind of get a bit bored of the repetitiveness, and also his reactions, I think, left a bit to be desired, if I'm being like completely honest with my thoughts and feelings. Hearing someone make fun of his name in some way, shape, or form, only to hear the same story about how the English name Sean is based off the Irish name Sean, which is the Irish version of the name John, and therefore is actually the correct version to spell Sean, and is the correct Sean and the original Sean. Yeah, listening to that story multiple times, I swear at one point, like, I would fact check this, but I don't know what episode it is, and I'm not watching for that whole series again. You cannot make me. I'm pretty sure at one point he told that story twice in one episode, or maybe it was he explained the origin of his last name twice in his first name once. Anyway, I don't care to fact check. I can't watch that series again. It was terrible. I wanted to give up. I got so close to clicking off it, but I didn't. And I watched through the entire thing because that's the kind of obsessive bastard that I am. But hey, no one can say I'm not perseverant. And you know, if that doesn't show my loyalty towards working out Jacksepticeye's lore, nothing will. Especially because I did not pay £20 to read the comics. Because I considered it, but I was like, this is a passion project. There's a reason there's a watermark on these videos, okay? I'm a cheapskate. Not even that, I just don't want to, you know. I don't want to, like, I have so many unread mangas that I got for, like, Christmas, unread books that I got years ago. I can't add a Jacksepticeye comic to that, and I can't really spend £20. This theory also doesn't need them. I wanted to check the wiki, see if there was anything that directly proved or disproved my theory that could bolster or, you know, make me scrap the whole thing. But the person on the wiki was also appeared to have the same idea that I had. They were not. They were just like, it's revealed why he calls himself Jackable Man in the comics. As far as I'm concerned, it seems relatively kind of like on its own universe kind of thing. I don't think it's relevant to the Jacksepticeye lore. It might be a different lore. And hey, maybe at some point I'll buy those comics. Like, I'm not going to buy it for YouTube, if that makes sense. I'm going to buy it because I want to enjoy them, and I just haven't done that yet. Also, it seems like there are only 2 out, so maybe it would make logical sense to wait until a few more are out. I don't know. Point is, I haven't read the comics, and we won't be using them for this video. Tell me if there's anything in the comics that proves or disproves it, but it's not important. Anyway, that's basically everything I had to say to further explain the story, because back to Meme Time. Like, there were a few good ones. The one where he wasn't in his subreddit, ironically, actually, because he was reacting to like a variety of memes. A lot of the memes were repetitive in the Jacksepticeye subreddit. It was nice. And again, watching someone 52 times in a row consecutively reviewing fan art, it's like, listen, I'm for that. I love the fact that he was showing off viewer fan art, but it is not something you want to watch 52 times. Occasionally interspersed with him explaining the origin of the name Sean. It's just, it's not what you want to see, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, the fact that it was the French Jean, and then it became John, and then it was Sean, and then it was Sean in English. And, like, listen, I really do get, okay, like, my name's Aaron. I really do, like, trust me on this, the whole AA Ron meme, I really understand the frustration of people pronouncing your name wrong. People do it to me on purpose, okay, like, my aunt did it for me, to me for literal years. Like, I really do understand the frustration. But please understand my frustration at having to listen to that 52 times. Okay, technically it was much less than that, but I don't care. My sanity has yet to recover. But it's fine. I don't blame Sean. Well, no, I do blame Sean, but I also blame myself for not being able to click away. And for giving in to my obsessive side. But it's fine. It's past. It's been years. It's been years. Anyway. I think that was pretty much everything I wanted to talk about. You know what? No. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this right. I'm going to prove that his argument that the name Sean is the original and correct way is wrong. Because I'm that much of a petty little bitch about having to listen to this a bunch of times. I had to listen to the story a ton of times, and frankly, I'm still mad. So I'm still mad that I did this to myself. So I'm gonna take it out on my voice currently, but on Sean once eventually, maybe. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't care. He shouldn't. Okay, but by his argument, it's Sean, his spelling, the Irish Sean. Well, first off, there aren't fathers or whatever they're called in English, so his name would be seen in English. And also, I would argue that extending the vowel would be seen. But, you know, what do I know? Nothing. That's what. But, you know, there aren't fathers in English, so technically in English his name would be seen. But anyway. Also, I swear at one point, this is just a memory I have, I swear at one point he says, like, gets annoyed when, like, fast food workers pronounce his name wrong. Because he'll make a concerted effort to pronounce their name right, and I get that. Like, I assume, because he said, like, if they have super weird, obscure names, maybe... I assume he's referring to foreign names, and I don't really think you could blame a foreigner for not realizing that the name Sean should be pronounced Sean if it's spelled S-E-A-N and doesn't have the father, like... You can understand that if English isn't your first language, especially, which I assume they would be if you find the name too hard to pronounce. I don't know, maybe. Also, they're a fast food worker. I highly doubt they care, and you shouldn't really expect them to care about your name. I don't know. Right, yeah, I'll prove that the name Sean is not correct. Actually, you see, Sean again, it comes from the English John, which comes from the French Jean. Sean, as in the English name Sean, would be the correct spelling. Because the Irish Sean isn't the name Sean, but it's the Irish version of the name John. So technically his name in English would actually be John, not Sean at all. And if you were using the argument that, well, it's what Sean came from and therefore is the original, which first off, original doesn't always mean correct spelling, necessarily. Usually it does, but not always. But also, by that logic, the name John would also technically be the very original and correct spelling of the name John, and the name Jean would be the very most original spelling and pronunciation of the name Sean. Do you see the kind of snowballing effect that this argument could have, the slippery slope, if you will? Point is, his name is John. I'm sorry, that was an incredibly irrelevant 20-minute side tangent, but it had to be said. It had to be said so that I can heal from the 52 episodes. It took multiple days. It was so boring. I don't know if I'll ever come across such mental anguish in my life again, and I'm thankful that I won't. But I came out stronger. Anyway, let's get to the actual lore, shall we? Fortunately, the lore really shouldn't... I mean, I was hoping this wouldn't take an hour. It really seems like this is going to end up being an hour. Christ on everything. Oh, I guess if we're doing this, let's do it right. Let's talk about the psychological effects of watching Jacksepticeye for a quarter of a year straight, shall we? Well, I can tell you that in my internal monologue, the word "boys," let's do this boys, became incredibly boys. I can't do it anymore, but became incredibly common because Jack says it all the time. It turns out when the main thing you're listening to and taking in 24/7 is Jacksepticeye, bit of his dialogue starts to get in, like Jesus Christ. You know, it just Jesus gets in there. Fortunately, I have since mentally recovered and can. That isn't in my internal monologue anymore. I still watch Jacksepticeye, by the way. This wasn't just for this video. I do enjoy his content. Anyway, that was just a last little thing. I want to go over that because I want you to understand how much effort I put into this. Anyway, so that you understand the very little effort I'm going to put into editing this, that's fine. Let's get into the lore. The first thing I want to do is a slight misconception here. You see, in Say Goodbye, I believe it is called, it should be, the Halloween episode where, you know, we see Jack kill himself. A lot of people interpret that as Jacksepticeye, the character in this universe, who I know Shauna said doesn't exist, and we'll get to that. We will get to it. Killing himself. No. Because, as lovely commenter, I'm so organised and so smart and also so incredibly organised and never repetitive. As lovely commenter, the Duckzilla5546, 1 year ago on the very MatPat video that started all of this, the one reacting to Iris with Lee, or, you know, the Daffy Duck guy, he pointed out, basically, that the symptoms the English town was having is the same things that happened to, it says Sean, I'm going to say Jack, in the video, in the Halloween video, right? Headaches, nosebleed, suicide. It's all things you hear. You know, you see Sean have a headache, see him, you know, get a nosebleed, commit suicide. I got to see that comment prior to watching it, so I actually got to look out for those things as I was watching it for the first time. That was fun. But it's like the suicide was by a knife through the neck. Now, a lot of people interpret this as, you know, Jack being killed by Auntie. Or maybe Jack killing himself because he's being tortured by Auntie. I think this is the creation of Auntie. I think that's what it's always been. And there are quite a few points to back this up. First off, just the fact that, you know, most early designs, anytime we, you know, not anymore, but back in the day, his design had the big old knife gash across the neck. That's gonna... Yeah, that's gonna... That's pretty telling, really, is what I mean to say. There's also Auntie's reaction. He blames us, you know, the audience. We didn't do anything. We didn't stop him. Seems weird that Auntie would get mad at us. Like, he's very mad here. It seems weird that he'd get mad at us, you know. Unless it's his death, in which case he has a very good reason to be mad at us for not doing anything. Whereas if he succeeded, why would he be mad at us? Is he just trying to manipulate us? Could be, but I think it makes more sense with the other evidence that it's him. Also, we don't see Auntie appear until afterwards, and again, all the symptoms line up, so it's likely that this wasn't Auntie's doing. This was the creation of Auntie. This is when the slab in the middle of town was affecting everyone, and he killed himself, and I would assume absorbed its power, and that's how he exists. You might want to argue that that can't happen because Eren describes him as the most dangerous alter. So how could he be getting his powers from another alter? Right, surely he'd be weaker. And here's the thing. Strength does not equal danger. I mean, this slab is able to affect an entire town. Anti, the most we ever see is one woman and 2 children. And he's not even able to beat Sneeplestein at one point. Like, he's not actually that powerful. The thing that makes him dangerous is that he's sentient. He has the power, and he is quite powerful, but he's also sentient, and that makes him more dangerous, than a slab that can be removed and stored easily. So that actually makes a lot of sense. Because of course it does. Okay, so that's the creation of Anti, and one more piece of evidence is in Darkiplier versus Antisepticeye, before it becomes a joke. When they're talking, Darkiplier actively says,
"You're weak, just like him!"
You seem to like to try things that are destined to fail. So why don't you go kill yourself again and come back when you're ready?
Why don't you just put on more...
Now, obviously here, Anti does refer to Jack as another person, or the Jack who killed himself as another person, but he does also... Well, Dark does technically say, why don't you kill yourself again and come back when you're ready? There are 2 implications here. 1, Anti did kill himself, and 2, that in some way, shape, or form, it was killing himself that allowed him to gain more power. Right, come back when you're ready, kill yourself again. Obviously, this is more than supporting evidence. I would say it's pretty clear that Anti, he literally calls himself the Antisepticeye. I know. Jack said that he likes to refer to Anti more as Anti than Antisepticeye, but he didn't say that's not his name, so nothing there. But he potentially hates that past version of himself, almost referring to it as another entity. So that's interesting. And, it's supporting evidence on top of the rest, right? Like, it feels like this is the creation of Anti, not him killing Jack. Which would also make sense because Jack leaves it on a massive cliffhanger. So let me kind of explain. As I mentioned earlier, the kind of surgery clicker games, it ends with Sneeplestein coming in and being all, "Who are you? I am the good doctor." And the implication seems to be that he doesn't know Jack, right? He doesn't know this Jacksepticeye character. Then, later on, and then there's a certain simulator which doesn't give us a whole lot, and that's the problem. The timeline has a lot of things that just don't line up. There's not a whole lot you can do to place them, but there are at least some. Like the main storyline you can place and create a vague timeline for. So, Jack continues. At one point, there's a game about depression, or the monotony of life, something like that, in which the wiki lists it as an appearance of Chase Brody, and he says, like, my friend's in a coma. That's a reference to... I should have done this the other way around. That's a reference to Kill Jacksepticeye, which is him trying to cure... He uses an Easter egg to get his head on the entity in the game, the human body that's being affected by disease. And then, Anti comes in and tries to kill him. And this is where, when earlier I mentioned that Sneeplestein is, immune to Anti's powers, or, like, he can't even kill Anti, or Anti can't even kill Sneeplestein, that, this is when that comes back, because this is when he can't. Right, Anti is trying to stop Sneeplestein killing Jack, and Sneeplestein doesn't get so much as a nosebleed. He gets a bit of a fever, he gets a bit clammy, but it's hard to tell if that's from stress or actually from Anti. Like, I think he gets a bit weak or sick. Okay, I forgot to mention this in the original recording, so we're just gonna mention it now. Why is Sneeplestein immune to Anti's powers? Well, my working idea is that Sneeplestein is a surgeon. So he, of course, works with Antiseptic all the time, right? Antiseptic, Antisepticeye. Perhaps working with so much Antiseptic has made him immune to Anti's powers. It's probably not intentional, but it is really cool. And, in fact, surgeons work in aseptic environments, which is almost kind of like what the slab is to Anti. It's like, if Antiseptic is what kills Septiceyes, or septic, then aseptic is just an environment with no septic in. So I just thought that was kind of cool. The one character who should be working with Antiseptic on a regular basis is the one character who's shown to be able to be basically immune to Anti's powers. That's cool. It's a bit of an alternate cut back to, yeah, but I forgot to mention that, and I just thought it was really cool, so I'll throw it in here. While Jack doesn't, make a full recovery here, he doesn't seem to die either. Seems like he ends up in a coma, and then, as mentioned in that earlier. And then, in a game that I can never remember the name of for the life of me, despite how many times I watch people play it. I think 3 separate times I've watched people play it thinking it's a game I haven't seen before. And, the first time, obviously, it wasn't, but then the second 2 times, it's just me being stupid. So the game ends with all the flashing lights. Doesn't really matter. The main thing is that Jack wakes up in that one and says, I know what he did to me. Or I remember what he did to me. And all of this is without any common notes or script, clearly, so you're not just, watching Jacksepticeye for a quarter of a year really, really got all the knowledge in my noggin. But, yeah, point is, it ends on a big cliffhanger, so it's kind of... And I know Jack at this point has said he doesn't see Jacksepticeye as a character in this universe, which could just... And he said that, the earlier videos aren't necessarily as canon. He's referring to the Sneakle Power Hour here, which doesn't really connect to anything anyway, but, yeah, I mean, it's kind of a case of, At that point, we're not building with a whole lot, though, are we? We're building basically the Irish stream, the Iris stream, and, I think the few before that about Chase, his dead wife. So, 3 episodes, we wouldn't, at that point I wouldn't be able to do much. So I'm just going to be using all of the content. Also, by that logic, I would have, wasted a quarter of a year watching things that didn't matter. I'm not doing that. Also, for reasons we'll get to later, I kind of think there's another reason why Jack isn't a character in this franchise so much. First off, I should probably talk about Anti vs. Doc. Is it canon? It's a joke video. I mean, it doesn't matter, because there's other evidence pointing to it anyway. And are these universes even connected anymore? The way Jack seems to be approaching it, I would kind of assume he is the type to say, they're not connected anymore, and that was when we were younger, that was when we were silly, that's when, he clearly didn't have a story planned out at that point. And so by that point, yeah, maybe they aren't connected, but them being connected actually explains way too much. I mean, more so in terms of Mark's lore than anything, but, and I plan on doing this for Mark. I haven't watched through all the videos yet. That'll be an undertaking in its own right. I don't think he uses Dark like Jack uses Anti, so he shouldn't have as many episodes. But, and he doesn't really have as many egos, and they don't really appear as much. So for the most part, it should be fine. It shouldn't take us long, I would assume, but what do I know? Point is, and I think I've watched all the major lore ones by this point anyway, but I'd be happy to rewatch them. Point is that in the, one, there's the house, right? Now, who killed Mark by a house? Mark dies, he possesses Damien, Damien dies. I need to watch Mark explaining the lore, but, but yeah, this is a Jacksepticeye lore video, so we're just going to break it down. This is mostly what I got from a map video, okay? But, basically, in fact, they even tell similar stories, right? Jack kills himself and absorbs the power of a stone slab, the altar, right? And becomes an altar in his own right. The house, our protagonist gets possessed by Celine and Damien, 2 people who were killed along this process, because Damien's body gets possessed by Mark, actor Mark, in-universe Mark, whatever you want to say. But apparently, and this is just according to something Mabat said, I'll check it in my own right when I'm doing Markiplier lore, but this is a quick aside in the Jacksepticeye video, so I'm not going to put too much emphasis on it. But apparently a little bit of house entity was even fused into Dark, and that's why he has his powers. So even in that way, they tell similar stories and seem to be operating off of pretty similar rules. They also seem to be largely staying out of each other's way, covering different territory. These universes definitely can still coexist. There's no reason they can't. Again, they're playing seemingly on same rules. The house would obviously be an altar in this case. And so would Wolfstache. A lot of people, I think, kind of think that Wolfstache went off the loony end, and that's when he got his powers. And that would make sense. Maybe he was clued into the reality of his existence, or maybe believing death doesn't matter allowed him to manipulate his existence without realizing what it fully is? Unclear. But it doesn't matter, because it's not true. Because in Who Killed Mom, again, we see the Colonel, and he already has the ability to teleport around. He already has the ability to manipulate, appear in different outfits and do things. Like, he's already messing with reality, admittedly on a much smaller scale than Wolfdash is, but we also see him on a much smaller scale. And he's also, he isn't manipulating time here or anything crazy like that, but point is, like, it does show he's had these abilities his whole life, maybe losing his mind, maybe he never fully realized, and losing his mind is what kind of made him. In this case, the time alter that's mentioned in, like, one quick little, like, aside in the Irish, is like, alter 1118 or something like that, is a time alter. Don't be like alter 1118 or something like that. You could technically explain most of Wolfdash's abilities through some kind of time manipulation. Or again, he could just be a different alter. Point is, he would be an alter and you'd never have realized he's an alter. These universes do connect each other. It's also likely Echo is the time alter, if that means anything at all, but, you know. That's just me pointing out that the two universes can definitely coexist, and I don't think Jack and Mark, or Sean and Mark, I don't think they need to, like, sever their universes. I think they can coexist and inform each other's lore, but, it's down to them at the end of the day. Anyway, back to the Jacksepticeye lore. After a brief Markiplier aside, back to Jack. Honestly, that's pretty much, I think, everything that's important. For now, the lore's mostly known. So, let's construct a timeline. Honestly, that shouldn't be too hard. I mean, the earliest events would be the events of Say Goodbye. Right, we see Auntie. Auntie kills himself. He gets created. We see at some point JJ is created. On Halloween, so maybe at the same time, maybe a different day. There's Schneepelstein meets Jack. Jack's a YouTuber, so he likely... basically, at some point, Jacksepticeye is a YouTuber. He befriends Chase Brody. At some point, he sneaks into a hospital and performs surgery on people, which... Yikes. But sure, man. And then Schneepelstein catches him, and while they don't appear to get along in that interaction or know each other, they do appear to befriend each other later on. So they befriend each other and they carry on. At some point, Jacksepticeye kills himself and comes back as Antisepticeye. At which point, also at some point, Jacksepticeye gets turned into a silent film character. That's kind of all separate right now. It appears as if that all happens before the Chase Brody Power Hour. I mean, Jack has said that Easter eggs don't matter and are just Easter eggs, but there is... one of JJ's puppets is in the background of Chase Brody, and so I guess if JJ... maybe implies JJ is already dead. So that whole saga could have happened. Jackie Boy Man and Marvin the Magnificent also exist and are doing their own things, but, kind of unimportant to the main story. They're existing. They have comics together. Maybe I'll cover the comics at some point. Anyway, following it back, Antisepticeye attempts to kill Jacksepticeye. Antisepticeye, a Jacksepticeye who's killed himself, is now going after Jacksepticeye, who Schneepelstein then manages to save in the form of a coma, and then he wakes up later on, leaving it on a big cliffhanger, and then the whole kind of Chase Brody arc happens where he finds his wife and kids dead, and then he finds... and then he's warning them, and then he appears outside somewhere, and then Iris take him in, and then that's kind of left on the cliffhanger of Auntie appears to have cornered him. And see, it's a perfect timeline. There's no problems with this timeline. I mean, it's just a timeline that has Jacksepticeye kill himself, and then Jacksepticeye, in the form of Antisepticeye, who has killed himself, attempts to kill Jacksepticeye, while there's also a Jacksepticeye who has been turned into a silent film character, who then also gets killed by Auntie. Now, wait a minute. Do you see the problem here? 3 separate characters, at least, in this universe, are just Jacksepticeye. That doesn't work. Now, MatPat has proposed the idea of interdimensional travel. It's possible. But I think I have a different explanation. An explanation that stays all in one universe and is significantly more earth-shattering than alternate realities. You ready? It all comes down to Jacksepticeye. Another Septiceye. An eye. Or so we think. Have you ever considered what Jacksepticeye looks like? I mean, sure, he looks like an eye, but consider his earliest appearances. He's long and thin with a point at the end and a kind of rounded end. I mean, sure, in more recent years he looks a lot more eye-like, but in his very first appearances, and still, I would say recently, he kind of looks like a tadpole. Or a sperm, honestly, either works. So, and he's a Septiceye, the same as Jacksepticeye, who became Anti-Septiceye and JJ, or Jameson Jackson. So what I'm suggesting here is that the Jacksepticeyes, it's not one person. They're a species. That's right. Jacksepticeye isn't even human. And that would explain why Jacksepticeye isn't a character in this universe. Because he isn't a character, he's a species. A species. Now, I'm not saying that every character played by Jack is a Septiceye. Obviously not. What I'm saying is that at the very least, Jameson Jackson, Jacksepticeye, that guy, the one who woke up and said, I remember what he did to me, the one who's friends with Schneebelstein, and Anti are members of this species. Now, obviously, you may be saying it's quite an absurd leap for me to go from, yeah, there are some timeline inconsistencies here, the same person appears to end up as multiple, to saying they're a whole species. I mean, surely I'd at least jump to cloning first, but no. First off, again, JJ kind of appears. I mean, on Halloween, he gets turned into Jameson Jackson. You know, he starts off with Jacksepticeye. And then in JJ's Jolly Jaunts, he just gets killed by Anti. I mean, what was the point? Well, what if Anti was trying to create himself an ally, or just wanted to see if it would work? What if he used an altar, put it down, and let JJ absorb its powers? And then when JJ didn't turn out as he appeared, although I guess JJ must have some reality manipulation abilities, because he's black and white, he can make text appear, he can make things appear like old-timey film, effects, so maybe he has some powers, but either way, he's not aggressive like Anti is, and so Anti probably killed him as a kind of failed experiment. But, let's take a step back. How are they a species? Well, my suggestion is that the Septiceyes, Jacksepticeye, that kind of, they grow like a tadpole, into a full humanoid, but not human, species. It's actually common when you actually look across the series. I mean, consider a few things here, right? You have Anti, who has the ability to fly. Jackie Boy Man, regularly shown to have the ability to fly. And Jackie Boy Man is either a man with the powers of a Jacksepticeye, or a Jacksepticeye covering it up, then you're one of the two. And there's even a song, right, by Ninja Sex Party, that's, the idea of eating things and getting their power, like, eating a bird and getting the ability to fly. That's technically not really canon, because Jack didn't make it, but it was the first appearance of his costume. The wiki lists it as an official appearance, and even Jack, I believe, has kind of admitted that, that's kind of his first appearance. And again, that song is all about absorption. We have Anti, who's absorbed the powers of an altar and become one. And that explains one of the biggest questions about how Anti got created. Where are the others, right? If multiple people commit suicide, why aren't there multiple Antis running around terrorizing people? Well, it's because they're not human. The humans, they just died, right? They're just dead. But Anti is something special. He's something different. He's a Jacksepticeye, or maybe just a Septiceye, and so he just has the powers to absorb. So he absorbed it in death and became Anti-Septiceye. So Jameson Jackson absorbed the powers of the altar and became, Jameson Jackson. Schneebelstein is probably just human. Marvin could be either he was originally Jack the Magnificent, maybe he gave himself a name because he was sick of being identified by a species, or maybe he's just his own guy. It doesn't really sort out. Again, Jackboy Man could be a Jacksepticeye, could be the man with the powers of a Jacksepticeye. It doesn't mean, I don't know. But he is associated with the ability to fly and absorption, which is something Anti can also do. Fly and absorb. Or at least be absorbed powers. And it's something we see Sam do. Well, flying-wise. Now, usually he's in a tank, and so you could argue he's kind of flying around. Yeah, that's just him swimming in the tank liquids, obviously. Except in one Halloween ending, one Halloween, he has the ending, I don't want to say cutscene, like ending animation for his videos, but it's got like the click on this video to watch more. Well, for a certain Halloween portion, the container that Sam was in broke, and you can see Sam flying around. Flying. Yeah, clearly they're all the same species. Which is interesting. Because with them being a different species, it suddenly explains a lot of the lore. Yeah, Jacksepticeye wouldn't be a character, it would be a species. It explains a lot. It even explains why Sam would be being kept in some kind of test tube. It's probably an iris test tube, and they're trying to experiment on him. That would be why he breaks out and tries to escape. They're trying to work out what makes it tick. We know they want Anti, why wouldn't we assume they would want others of his kind? It does make a lot of sense. And, just more things that point towards the theory, is even the name, right? Jack. If Septiceye is the species, what does Jack stand for? Why do multiple identify? Well, if we take a turn from the Jacksepticeye lore and talk about donkeys for a second, male donkeys go by two names. But the one that's important here is Jack. They go by Jack. Jack Donkey, right, is a male donkey. So Jacksepticeye could potentially mean male Septiceye, or male of my species, Septiceye. Hence the male Septiceye. By that logic, you should be looking out for anyone named Molly. Anyone named Molly in this series? Don't trust them. Well, I guess you can trust them, but they're probably a member of the Septiceye species. A female member. Also, donkeys do go by one other name. Yes, I'll tell it to you. We like to learn, don't we? John. Hey, what did we say Sean's name was in English again? Oh, that's right. John. Boom. Mic drop. That wasn't just me being petty, that was a setup for this exact moment where I reveal that Sean, being connected to the name John, connects John and Jack to donkeys, connects to species, connects to Septiceyes. Boom. And honestly, from there, the timeline honestly gets a lot cleaner. I mean, we can pretty safely say that at some point a member of the Jacksepticeye species, let's call him Scene, let's call him just Sean. At some point, just Sean, he starts making YouTube videos. At some point, he befriends, friends Chase Brody. He does the YouTuber thing. He breaks into a hospital and performs surgeries he's not able to do. Classic pranks YouTuber. And at some point, kind of running simultaneously to this, I mean, Jackboy Man and Marvin are doing their own things. That's happening. But also, Anti is, the events of Say Goodbye happen. And then Anti goes and kills. Okay, yeah. So then Anti goes and creates JJ. Now that whole little plotline happens, right? So he creates JJ and then kills JJ when he deems him to be a failure or maybe just a threat. Could be either. From there, From there he then tries to attack Jack, which leads to Schneefelsteen trying to save him, which then leads to the one where Chase says his friend's in a coma, which then leads to Sean waking up. Schneefelsteen, I should have said this. Chase would be a human because he has human children, right? Okay, so he's not a Jacksepticeye. Cool. Okay. So then, Jashawn wakes up, he remembers what he did to him, and if I had to guess, I would say that him and Schneefelsteen go off and do something to try and stop Anti, leaving Chase all alone. since his wife and kids then get killed. And then he leaves his wife, or he's already left his wife at some point. And then, Andy kills his wife and kid, or his ex-wife and kids. And then wife and kids, ex-wife and kids, it could be either. And then he gets transported to the top of the warehouse, and then he gets taken to Iris, and now he's being cornered. So either he's dead, or he'll get saved by Echo. Maybe it's just that Echo is a feminine name, but I'm getting the vibes, I'm getting the signals that Echo is going to be a woman. I don't know what it is. I really don't. Maybe Echo is just a feminine name. I don't know. I've seen ideas that it could be JJ, which I'd be incredibly happy about seeing JJ come back. And he would be an Echo from the past. But I don't know. Echo could save him. Marvin, I guess, could technically save him since he's seen the whole prophecy and would have access to magic by this point. He's done actual magic. I'm excited to see where this goes next. Now that we've straightened out the timeline, learned that the Jacksepticeyes are a completely different species, it also explains things like why there aren't other forms of Septiceye. Where's the Samsepticeye for Anti-Septiceye? On the wiki it claims that there's an anti-version of the Samsepticeye, but I can't find it anywhere. Someone did a cool fan art in meme time. It's one of the few things I'm glad about. I was seeing the fan art, because it was cool. There was fan art of all the different eyes to go with each individual ego, which is pretty cool. Yeah. That's about it, really. The egos are cool, and each of them should have an eye, but they don't. And maybe that's because the Samsepticeyes can't absorb things until they become fully formed. Hence the fact that there are no Anti-Septiceyes, despite the fact that you would think that if they have Anti in a lab, or if they want to have Anti in a lab, and they have a Samsepticeye, why wouldn't they just try and create an Anti-Septiceye? Maybe because they can't, especially when they have the thing that created Anti. Maybe it's because they can't, because then it wouldn't be able to produce an adult Septiceye, who they could then turn into an Anti for them to trap. That's basically it. For as much as there was content to watch, there wasn't really that much lore. Again, a lot of it was kind of obscure video appearances, and it's all been a relatively straight story so far, I think. But I am excited to see what happens next, where it goes from here. Now that we've straightened up the timeline, straightened up the lore, worked out that, technically speaking, the Jacksepticeyes are a completely different species. Yeah, I'm excited to see where this goes. I wish Sean all the luck in the world. And I hope he keeps creating. I'm excited to see what comes, and I'm excited to analyse. And perhaps at some point I'll analyse the comics, but that is £20. And I am 16, so that's quite the expense for someone of my caliber. Which is to say unemployed. And that's about it. That's the thing I have to say. Though, why don't we end this like Jack? If you like this episode, punch that subscribe button, and high fives will run. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. See ya. And always be on the eye out for the little details that everyone else misses.